Okay, so in this video we're going to be talking about the basics of inequalities. So we're going to start off with what the actual signs mean. So inequality signs look like these. I know a lot in primary schools they talk about it being crocodiles and things like that. I'm not going to say that one means something. So a lot of people say, well, this means it's bigger than and this one means it's less than. That only works if the x is on the left hand side. Okay, so if the x was here, yes, you're right, x would be bigger than a number, and if the x was on this side, x is less than a number. Okay, but if, let's say, the x was on this side, that wouldn't mean that x is less than the number. Okay, it actually means that x is bigger than. So I always think of it as whatever the number is. So for example, for here, the number that has the two pointy bits, that's the one that is bigger. Okay, and it's always pointing at the smaller number. So x is pointing at the smaller number. Okay, minus 2 is pointing at the smaller number. Okay, so that's how I learnt it anyway. Okay, and then you've got these ones here which are very similar, it's just they've got an extra line underneath. That means that they can be included as well, like it's equals as well as just being bigger or smaller. Okay, and you'll see why that's important when we do these ones below. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the couple of examples. So this one here would mean that x is bigger than 3. So x is bigger than 3 because the x is pointing to the 3. Okay, now the next one, there's two different ways you could write it. You could say that negative 2 is bigger than x because it's pointing at the x, or you could say, if you always like to have the x at the front, x is less than negative 2. Okay, so you've got two different ways of writing it. I'll write this one here, but I won't write this one because I'm running out of space. So this one is x is pointing at the negative 5, so x is bigger than that, but also because it's got the line underneath, it's bigger than or equal to negative 5. Okay, and this one, so the 7 is pointing at the x, so you could say that 7 is bigger, okay, or equal, because of the line here, to x. Okay, or if you want to say it the x way, x is less than or equal to 7. Okay, so the first sort of question that you could get is, what integer satisfies these inequalities? Okay, integer, if you're not sure, just means whole number. Okay, satisfies means that what number could x be so that that inequality works. Okay, so this one here means that x is bigger than 3, like what we wrote here. So logically, we think of what numbers are bigger than 3. So it could be that it's 4 or 5 or 6, okay? Anything bigger than 3. Okay, so that's the easiest way. If you work out what it is in terms of these, then you'll be able to work out what numbers. So secondly, you've got x is less than or equal to 7, a bit like what we've written here. So we think what numbers are equal or less than 7. So it could be 7, because it could be equal, or less, so it could be 6, or 5, or 4, and so on. Okay, sometimes they'll ask for how many they want, so they might want 5 numbers that satisfy. The last one, there is only a certain amount that will satisfy. So we know that x, because it's pointing at the negative 1, x is bigger than minus 1. I'm going to write the words in red. So we know that x is bigger than negative 1. Okay, but then if we look at this section, so that's that one there. If we look at the second section, which is this bit here, this is saying that that 3 is bigger or equal to x, or the reverse, x is less than or equal to 3. Okay, so firstly we need to think about what numbers are bigger than -1. So that could be 0 or 1 or 2. Okay, but also x has to be less than or equal to 3. So at the moment those numbers are all less than 3 too, but it could be equal, so we're going to have to add 3 in as well. Okay, and they're the only numbers that work. Okay, because it can't be 4, because if x was 4 that doesn't make sense because 3 isn't bigger than 4. And it can't be -2 because x is bigger than -1 and -2 is smaller than that. Okay, so it's just being careful of those. Okay, the second thing that you're expected to do is also that we need to plot these on a number line. So sometimes these number lines are drawn for you, sometimes they're not. I've just drawn mine quickly because it makes the a little bit easier. So I'm going to label these just 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the first thing we need to remember is these signs here, so the ones that don't have the line underneath, on the number line will be represented as a circle that is not filled in. Okay? If it does have the line underneath, so it's bigger than or less than and equal, it will be a circle, but you've got to colour it in. Okay, so it's like a filled in circle. Okay, so we'll do a couple of the first ones. So number 1, x is bigger than 2. So we know that it's 2, so that's where we're going to put the dot or the circle. So the circle's going to go at 2. Now because the sign here doesn't have a line underneath, it means that we do not fill it in. Okay, we're just going to leave it as it is. Okay, now we're looking for numbers that are bigger than 2. So if we think what numbers could be bigger than 2, so it could be 3 or 4 or 5, for example. Those numbers only appear on this side of that circle because you've got 3, 4, 5. So we're going to draw an arrow going in that direction because they're the numbers that we want, the ones that are bigger than. Okay, I'm just going to put a little A. Oh no, put a little 1. 1. Okay, just to represent the question. Okay, the next one. So again, the number that's in there is 3. So I'm going to draw a circle at 3 just to start off with. Now, because it's got an equal sign as well, we're going to fill it in. Okay, now this inequality is saying that 3 is bigger than x. So that means we need numbers that are smaller than 3. So it could be 2, 1, 0. So 2, 1, 0, all of these. So that means that the arrow is going to have to go in that direction. Okay, because those are all the values that x can be so that it is less or equal to 3. Okay, the next ones aren't going to be arrows going all the way. They're going to be like little 2 dots connected. So again, we're going to start with the numbers first. I'm just going to write number 2 there. So we've got number 1 and we've got number 4. So I'm going to circle at 1 and circle at 4. Okay, neither of them have the line underneath, so I'm not going to colour them in. I'm going to leave them as they are. Okay, now we want numbers that are between, so x is bigger than 1, so it could be 2 or 3, but it does have to be less than 4, so it's only 2 and 3. So they appear in between the 2 dots, so we just draw a line connecting them together. Okay, so that's number 3. Okay, and number 4 is done the same way. So again, circle at -3 and a circle at 2. Now the -3 one, the sign next to it has a line underneath, so that's the one we fill in. Okay, but the sign next to the 2 doesn't, so that one's going to stay not filled in. Okay, so x needs to be bigger than -3, so it could be -2, -1, 0. It has to be less than 2, so it could be 1, but it couldn't be 2. So these numbers appear in the middle between the dots. So again, we just connect them with a straight line. Okay, and that's how you would plot inequalities on a number line.